Hey everybody, BTO Pro here, and today I'm going to show you how we made a simple icon. What's a simple icon? It's a simple icon web component. So it's going to take the place of what we were previously doing with iron icons and the iron icon set. So I wrote a blog post about it, but I'm going to show you a real quick demo of how it works because it's pretty neat. So you can find all the code that we ever produce at github.com/elmsln. And in this case, we're going to be in our LRN Web Components mono repo. It's got 200 plus repos built out of there. If you want to check this code out and pull it into your own repo to play with, you can run npm or yarn install at LRN Web Components /simple-icon. Just put it out, has no usage yet. So anyway, I did a write-up on this on dev.to that gets into a little bit of the more interesting aspects of it there. But a lot of this is inspired by Michael from Red Hat. So Michael has this awesome, he works on Patternfly elements, or PFE, which is what these are short for. And so he has this great write-up of everything involved, how he's using it to load font awesome icons. And so taking a lot of inspiration from this, I mean, there's a ton of conventions from it that are very similar, and then applying it to our context with hacks and the way that we've previously been doing icon sets. Let's see what we get. So I'm going to go into LRN Web Components. All of our elements are then under elements, and then I'm going to do simple icon. So do code and then space period and get a nice little code editing environment just to simple icon and VS Code. And so I'm going to fire up the demo in the background and we'll walk through the code real quick. So now I'm going to do yarn start, which is how we get any of our little demo spaces going. You can see there's icon and icon set that our tooling discovered. So we'll go into a demo of just icon. So you can see here we've got 3 icons. That's not really a big deal. And it shouldn't be a big deal. However, with the way that iron icons previously loaded, if I wanted just the hacks remix icon, I actually had to load all 69 icons that our team has produced, which is less than ideal, you could say, from a performance standpoint. So it actually ends up equating to like 100 some odd K. You can read it in the article. But so let's see what's going on with these icons, how they work. So we pull in from lit element, love lit element, HTML and CSS processors, and then we pull in a class called SimpleColors. Now, Nikki MK, another critical member of our team, she wrote this whole way at which we can have this nice base class built on top of lit element, although I think it does come as a super class, you can use it in anything, that basically manages all of our CSS variables for us, and it supplies some really good properties to elements so that we can have a consistent way of providing things like accent color, as well as whether or not we're in dark or light mode of the content. So the more interesting part here is we're matching kind of the CSS API, if you will, of the way iron icons worked, which is a Polymer element base class. The main reason we want to get off of that is Polymer element is significantly more bloated than lit element, let alone needing to teach it how to interface with all of our colors and that type of thing. So I got to learn that flood-color is a thing because I never heard of that before. But we basically, using CSS variables, bind it to simple-colors-default-theme-accent 8. And you're like, that's a lot of hyphens. I don't get it. But reading this is pretty simple. So simple colors, that's the name of our thing. The default design that we have, our theme accent. So we could supply like blue and it would just be the 8th color of blue that we use. However, doing theme accent means it's going to respect whatever attribute is set on this element for what its CSS variables should be locally. So it's going to be the 8th accent color is set to the flood for this element in question. So you can see this here. We end up having accent-color equals blue, and lo and behold, it's a blue icon. If we inspect the icon, right, we can see this is loading an SVG file from somewhere else. It's a cool aspect of this. But I can say, okay, well, it's no longer accent color gray. Let's make it red. and we get our consistent color for red, I can put it in dark mode, and then it lightens the icon, implying that it's going to be displayed on a darker UI element of some kind. So you can see how the CSS variables have all renamed themselves. Basically, dark mode flips the order. You see there as far as accent 1 through 12. And then if we make this like orange, you can see it rewrites all the colors rather rapidly. This is a really nice aspect of lit element. It's using this shared styles connotation that it passes around as an actual data object, so it's really performant. Not to mention CSS variables are a great convention that you can use in modern web anyway. So let's set this to green for fun. Right, just see that we have 3 different icons there. So we can colorize any SVG coming from somewhere else. So a large part of this, and this is honestly taken more or less straight from the work Michael did with the PFE icon, is this X-Link href that allows us to safely pull in an SVG and render it in context. So then we take our properties, which in this case, this is spreading these properties in. So we're pulling them in from the superclass, which is SimpleColors. So imagine that this actually has accent color and dark here. Then we're adding an SRC and an icon. Then to make sure that we apply filters correctly, we generate a random ID, and that binds the image to the filter effectively so that we can colorize it. Then we can see down, this is some lit element logic here. So updated is going to fire anytime any property or attribute changes that we've defined. And by, I shouldn't say attribute, any property changes. So if accent color changes, that's going to rerun. Same with SRC, same with icon. So imagine Dom's painting, right? Well, here's our index. See simple icon. We're going to step through. It goes, oh, there's an icon in question. And then it's going to run this code and go, okay, well, oh, we have an icon. All right. Try and set the SRC based on the icon. And so it's going to step back to here and say, okay, well, this.src equals, and we're going to do this weird convention that is window.simpleIconSet.requestAvailability and .getIcon. And you can see we pass in our current icon and context, which in this case is the object itself, because this is OOP. So what the heck is this request availability, you might ask? So this is a standard convention our team is aligned on for creating singletons. So if you want to think of a singleton as one instance that exists in the entire DOM tree, anybody can go ahead and jump into it, and they can subscribe to it. They can say, oh, hey, I also care about the state management of Simple Icon Set. Think of it as micro pieces of state management, right? So we only care about icons and whether or not we're applying the correct icon set in question. That's the only thing we care about in this entire state management transaction. So the way that we broker this is anybody that cares about the state of that one thing says, hey, request availability. Request availability says, oh, well, do we have an instance? Because imagine there's 20 icons on the page. They're all going to kind of kick this off. The very first one that gets there is going to say, oh, okay, well, we don't have one. So create a new simple -icon set, little trippy because it's itself, and then append it to the body of the document, right? So this instance is getting set here. Then the request availability actually returns the instance. So you have the DOM node created on demand, and you only have one copy in the entire document. Adding to the trippiness, whenever, even though this is with JS modules, even when this file is imported, this simple-iconset.js, it is itself going to call its own availability request, which ensures that it gets added to the DOM very early on in the setup of the entire document. Little weird, but it helps ensure that anytime we call request availability, we always get the singular definition. We don't have to go and write document.getElementById and have that potentially conflict. And we also don't have to write document.querySelector, simple-icon set. Oh, it didn't come back with anything. Oh, okay, well, we better make sure we create one. Like all of that just occurs because we've done this. So what is happening in simple icon set, or the singular instance of it, is we have two properties we care about. Now, the other cool thing, there's no dependencies in this singleton, this icon set, and it's built off of HTML element. So You can see we have icon sets, which is an object, and then we have needs hydrated, which is an interesting array that we'll describe here. So there's two different ways to register an icon set. The first one is an object. So if we detect that you've passed in an object, then we're going to set the name of the icons. And in this case, the way this little API works is think of that as this part, hacks : right? So that's the name of the icon set. And then we're going to set, spread the object, which is going to be the name of the icon and the location of the icon. This could be, maybe you have like 6 icons that are in very specific locations and you just want to pull them in directly. You can do that through direct reference here. Let's say that you have just a batch of icons, and this is something directly from Michael's work, and I'll show it with some of his font awesome icons, if I can say that, that he's pulled in to colorize. So in that case, what icons is going to be passed in as just a string that's the base location of where all these SVGs are located, which we're going to then convert into base location. Icon name is very critical here, .svg. So a lot more assumptions about what's being called there and what exists and what you want people to have access to, but very, very easy to implement. So what happens now is we got, okay, register icon set. Let's skip this piece right here. So if we remember back in our icon, right, we've said, hey, turn the name of the icon into an SRC, pointing to an actual SVG file. So we're going to call that Singleton. And then we're going to say, hey, give me the icon, and here's the name of the icon. So in give me the icon, we have a value and a context. We're going to take that value. In this case, that's going to be the hacks : whatever. And we're going to do a split, which string splits this into an array. And hopefully, right, this is a very minimal amount of validation to make sure you don't just type in like, give me an icon, right? It has to be give me an icon, the actual name. Right, so it has to be something that's pattern matched like that. Very simple pattern match to go array position 0. Well, that is give me an icon, and array position 1. Well, that is the actual name. So we need to make sure we have 2 array values there. Otherwise, this isn't valid. So if it finds that, and then if in the icon set we have the name of that icon directly, we return it. Otherwise, and this is the string use case, then we return the name of the icon set, and then we just slap on the name of the icon and do .svg. Now, there's a lot of assumptions in that second one, obviously, but it still keeps it simple. I'm also considering PFE icon does this cool thing with passing in a function and calling the anonymous function, seeding it with properties. I might actually do that as well as a third way of handling this. But here's the more interesting part, in my opinion. So let's say that we got here, which implies we either have an icon that is invalidly named, or more likely, we have an icon that isn't defined yet. And this can happen because, in part, the way that our team works is we do this thing called unbundled builds. So all of our elements are just kind of loading whenever they happen to load. There's no smashing it all into one precompiled package with rollup or webpack. We don't operate that way. So it's entirely possible that using dynamic imports, the definition for the hacks icon could potentially load after the DOM has started painting and SimpleIcon is requesting the definition. In that instance, we are going to say, oh, well, do we have a context, and that context is not equal to the object itself. In this case, the simple -icon set object. So if it's not, then we're going to push the context, which will be one of our instances of SimpleIcon, into this needs hydration bin. So that means there's an icon out there in the DOM, but we don't know what the SVG to replace with it yet is. So now we can go to what happens in that case, right? The icon set gets registered after the fact. So the icon is in the DOM, it's loaded. However, we don't know what the hell this icon set is. And therefore, now at the time that icon set is registered, let's see if there's anything that already loaded we care about. So in this case, we've got this.needshydrated.length is greater than 0, meaning we care about stuff. And then we loop through those and we rerun the set src by icon function of the icon, which, if we recall, is going to call the state manager's getIcon function. So If we're able to actually do that, then we're going to push this index, because we know that means we successfully rehydrated that icon's name. So we're going to push that index into a list. Then we've done all of the needs hydrated, and then we're going to reverse the list in question, which is a little weird, but because we're splicing the values back out of the array, we have to process them from oldest to newest. And so we reverse that order, and then we remove any of the indexes that pointed to specific elements. So what does actually registering an icon set look like in practice? Well, here's an example of the simple hacks icon set, which is going to call this path resolver function and say, hey, window.simpleIconSet.request availability, register an icon set, the name hacks, and it's going to point to a generic location. Okay, so let's see this actually sitting in the DOM here. So we're going to take our demo that we have there, right, with those 3 icons that are registered. And now we're going to go into the index, and we're going to remove this simple hacks icon set reference. So now you'll see it still loads. And in fact, if I inspect the document and we go dive into these simple icons, you can see that the shadow root has expanded. There's just nothing there. So what we need to do is we're going to need to pass this. Well, let's look at that simple icon set dot request availability, right? And that's going to return our instance. So somewhere in the DOM, right, and you can see it points to an actual place. In the DOM, there is simple icon set. But then we can call things off of that. So if I want to know what the icon sets are, we can see, well, there aren't any right now. If I want to see the list of things that need hydrated, right, we have this little array of these things that need hydrated in order to, like, we've registered them. There's just, we don't know what the heck they are. So what we can do is we can do request availability, register an icon set, in this case hacks, and then give it the base location of where all this stuff lives. And so when I call that, this kicks in, right? And we reprocess the things that need hydrated, and lo and behold, we don't have them anymore. Plus, it actually found a valid match, and now it has actually imported them, so that we get the same behavior whether or not this loads after the fact or beforehand. So I updated my CodePen to reflect some other ways that this could work. So we can see in the CodePen, I've got 4 icons in question. I got code JSON, remix, and arrow expand left under hacks. But then I've also got this FA-solid, which is a caret. So if you're not familiar with web components and just adding event listeners, this is a very simple one here, right? Just showing that I can style these web components. You can say, well, I'll make them 120 in height, and then magically they'll get bigger. I can also say, hey, whenever you mouse over the caret identifier, use a pointer. And in this case, I've said, hey, on mouse over, take off that dark attribute, which would be kind of cool. You can watch it. Change it, right? So we've got that. I hover over, dark goes away, back off, dark comes on. So that's a neat little way that I could leverage this. In part, we did this so that I could then go, well, I want it to be green, right? And there's that neon green caret that you hover over and you do the inverse type of a thing. So I was looking through some of Michael's code. It's also got font, awesome, icons, and regular. So if I want to hit the caret regular as opposed to solid, I don't really know what that even means, but oh, there we go, regular, there's an I. Okay, so I know there's far I in here. And what I can do then is I can go into my CodePen, and I'm going to register, and well, first let's define it. So we'll say, all right, there isn't just caret. We're going to get rid of that part. We're going to say it's, what did I say it was? FA regular. And we could also change this, right? So it's important that these names make sense initially, right? So he went with FOSS and FAR here. So we do FAR, and then I believe that it is I, FAR I, or well, this would just be I. Okay. So then what I'm going to write here is I, and we'll say that the I is purple. Okay. And now to register the icon set so that actually does something, right? We've got solid, so we're going to change this to FAS. We should see the caret show up. Yep. All right. And then we're going to copy and paste this again. And we got FAR, and it says solids regular. Now, because we've registered regular and solid, although that was funny, we could do solid, and I guess it. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So, so that's a cool, that's an interesting little thing there, that there's regular and solid, right? But they're the same icon. So instead of toggling dark, let's do icon and see if that works. So we're going to do, when you mouse over the caret, we're going to change the icon name to FAS caret. And we're going to do FAR caret when you mouse off of it, which means we should start the caret at FAR for consistency. So we've got an orange caret. Oh, caret isn't in there. Apparently I was, though. Let's do it with I. Let's change it from caret to I, since we know that that's in both of them. I was not aware of that. Okay, so there's the I. I'll change this to say I, just so I know what's on a caret. I. And then we'll change this to I. And now, oh, there we go. That's pretty cool. So now the I icon is changing based on us mousing over it, right? And the other fun, again, cool thing with web components and these things, the properties and their behaviors being reflected to attributes, is seeing this in the DOM, right? Seeing that we can go from our far I, I'll have to make that reflect. So this is actually a good example of reflecting. So you can see it's not actually updating in the DOM, even though we know it is. So the reason it's not doing that, but yet dark is because there's a setting in lit element called reflect. And so I'm going to reflect the icon for future purposes, so that we end up getting that little DOM effect in question. But so this is just a little tutorial of how I built this. Huge props to Michael and the Patternfly Elements crew. This is a really, really detailed, much better article than I wrote. But I wanted to illustrate how you could actually leverage simple icons, why we ended up building it, and I think it's got some interesting conventions inside. So if you're interested in any of our projects and what it is we're building over here, make sure you hit up hackstheweb.org for a lot more details, or you can follow Hacks Camp on Twitter, where we're always writing about what we're doing. If you want to join us in our Slack channel, it's bit.ly/hacksslack, and that'll get you into the channel where we end up talking about this stuff and write about it on a regular basis. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.